More and more people in Taiwan identify as Taiwanese than ever before.
We'll be hearing from young people in Taiwan about why they say they are Taiwanese.
We'll be looking at interesting Taiwanese traditions and historical sites.
And on Hashtag Taiwan, I tell you what Tesla CEO Elon Musk said about Taiwan. This is Taiwan Insider.
Welcome to the show. There's no place in the world where people's sense of identity has been monitored as much as Taiwan. For the past 30 years, National Tsinghua University has asked people the question, do you identify as Taiwanese, Chinese, or both? As you can see in the graph, the blue line, which represents Chinese, has gone from 24.5% to only 2.4%. The purple line, which represents both, has gone from 46.4% to 30.4%. And the green line, which symbolizes Taiwanese, has gone from 17.6% to 63.7% in the past 30 years. The Taiwanese identity is especially strong among young people. Another survey found that 83% of people under 30 identify as Taiwanese and only 13% as both Taiwanese and Chinese. For those in their 30s and 40s, the ratio was 64% Taiwanese and 31% as both. And for those 50 and above, 60% identified as Taiwanese and 32% as both. To hear from young people themselves, we asked students at Mingchuan University and also our host of our National Day broadcast, Anita.
So personally, I think we're more Taiwanese than Chinese.
I'm born in here, right? So the way I think and the way I play around, I'm more like Taiwanese.
I feel like I'm more Taiwanese. I think I'm totally a Taiwanese.
I think I identify more as Taiwanese, just because probably when I started school in Taiwan and all of that, the rhetoric had turned and we were all Taiwanese.
I have got to say this big gap between us, like Taiwanese and Chinese.
When you think the more diverse we are, the more elements we can create differently in the society for the better. So I think culturally, politically, business-wise, Taiwanese is more diverse. That's the biggest difference.
There's more competitive, and right here we are more like friendly, I gotta say.
A lot of the core values that define us as Taiwanese and the core values that define Chinese people have, for a long time, it has, I think there's a distance that's growing in between.
My grandparents, they are Hakka, so they probably Chinese like for a long time before. But based on the culture, language, food, everything, and history, I still think I'm Taiwanese. So is my family.
Now this week, President Taiwan also highlighted the Taiwanese identity in her National Day address. I don't think a Taiwanese identity necessarily means being anti-China. Even President Tsai Ing-wen this week sent some goodwill to China by saying she would work for a peace agreement as long as China respected Taiwan's democracy. But somehow that goodwill wasn't received by China. Now, Leslie and I will be speaking more about our thoughts about the growing Taiwanese identity, as well as how we identify ourselves, later on in the show this week. Now let's turn to Leslie as he introduces an interesting Taiwanese cultural tradition that happened this week.
As we talk about Taiwanese identity, well, one thing that's pretty unique about Taiwan is the local folk religion. We now take you to Miaoli County, where a local temple burnt a giant boat. Why? Well, to ward off COVID-19, of course.
Onlookers watch excitedly as a wild display of fireworks and flames light up the beach at night. But this is no ordinary bonfire. After a 30-year hiatus, the Baisha Dun Wuyun Temple in Miaoli is holding a king boat burning ceremony. In 2019, when China reported the first cases of COVID-19, Wuyun Temple worshippers said they received divine instructions to sacrifice a ceremonial boat to drive the plague god away. The temple spent over 3 million NT dollars to commission famous artisans to build this boat. On Monday night, worshippers filled the boat with ghost money and other offerings. After leading a procession to move the boat to the beach, the gatherers set the boat on fire. There are several taboos when it comes to boat burning ceremonies. Folklore expert Lin Maoxian says the boat must burn out completely, otherwise the evil spirits may come back. People are also not supposed to call out each other's names or look back at the boat after leaving because it might bring bad luck. Almost 3 years after the first reports of COVID-19, many worshippers hope that this ceremony may help drive the pandemic out of Taiwan once and for all.
Speaking of things that have persisted throughout history in Taiwan, one of the country's oldest landmarks is getting a name change, and not everyone is happy about it.
Anping Fort in Tainan is well known as the oldest fortress in the country. Many people immediately associate the name with its remodeled red and white towers, but the real historical site is actually the surrounding city walls. A recent excavation revealed that there are even more architectural relics around the fort. These newly found relics are from the Dutch colonization period, when the site was known as Fort Zeelandia. The Tainan city government applied to the Bureau of Cultural Heritage to classify Anping Fort and surrounding areas together as a National Historic Site. The Bureau has already approved changing the name from Anping Fort to Fort Zeelandia. Tainan Cultural Affairs Bureau Director Ye Zeshan says authorities will change some of the signs around the fort to describe it more accurately as Fort Zeelandia. But not everyone is on board with these changes. Historian Zheng Daocong says changing the name from Anping Fort to Fort Zeelandia does not encompass everything that the site represents to Tainan residents. He says the new name only references the period of Dutch rule, but the site contains relics from several different colonial periods. Some Tainan residents say the site has always been called Anping Fort, and it's better to keep the same name that has such a long history. When it comes to updating historic sites, it looks like getting public support may not be as easy as government approval.
And in Hashtag Taiwan, Elon Musk weighs in on Taiwan-China relations. Get this, his opinion is pretty controversial. This is Elon Musk. Now, I'm sure to most of you, he needs no introduction. He has a divisive reputation. But for those of you who don't know, he's best known for being CEO of the Tesla car company. He's also current head of the aeronautics company SpaceX, and he also has a drilling company that for some reason sold flamethrowers. Most recently, Musk has been in the news a lot recently because he wanted to buy social media platform Twitter for $44 billion US. He then tried to back out of that deal before deciding to move ahead with it anyway. There's a lot we can say about Elon Musk, but you guys are here for the Taiwan angle. Like Musk, Taiwan has been in the news a lot recently, and that's because China, which claims Taiwan, has been ramping up military aggression around the country. People are worried a war might break out. Now, Elon Musk recently gave the Financial Times an interview in which he said, "My recommendation would be to figure out a special administrative zone for Taiwan that is reasonably palatable, probably won't make everyone happy. And it's possible, and I think probably, in fact, that they could have an arrangement that's more lenient than Hong Kong." So basically, Musk is saying Taiwan should become another version of Hong Kong. Does Elon Musk know what happened to Hong Kong? First of all, I'm a little baffled at how the interview with Musk landed on the topic of Taiwan. I really wonder how the interviewer came to the conclusion that Musk is qualified to talk about Taiwan in a relevant capacity. He's neither Taiwanese, nor has he ever demonstrated an inclination to talk about Taiwan-related topics. He seems to casually stop by and offer poorly thought out advice to solve another global problem. Second of all, trying to have an arrangement that's more lenient than Hong Kong doesn't seem viable to me. In 1997, Hong Kong was handed over to China, ending its 156 years as a British colony. As part of the handover, China agreed to give Hong Kong a high degree of autonomy. China said it would run Hong Kong under the one country, two systems principle, which is a model China often proposes to rule Taiwan with. Do you remember what happened to Hong Kong? In 2019, Hong Kong had massive pro-democracy protests, which resulted in crackdowns and death. Then, in 2020, China passed the national security law in Hong Kong, which is simply an authoritarian tool of control operating under the guise of national security. China's model in Hong Kong was supposed to be based on leniency, but look at how that turned out. I really don't think Musk thought his response to the question through. Furthermore, amplifying the opinion of a billionaire on this geopolitical Rubik's Cube further erases the collective will of 23 million Taiwanese people. Listen to them. Like, Musk is good for the press, and I get that. But let's stop collectively paying attention to what that billionaire or this billionaire thinks about how the world should work, and instead listen to the people who have to live in that world. And before we go back to the studio for a final discussion, some of the other stories that are on our radar.
Taiwan opened its borders to tourists and removed the quarantine requirement for inbound travelers on Thursday. Travelers from certain countries can enter Taiwan visa-free again. At least 230 tour groups are set to visit this month. The new rules don't apply to tourist travelers from China, Hong Kong, and Macau. Authorities say decisions on changing those rules will come at an appropriate time following discussions on the two countries' pandemic prevention measures. Taiwan's stock market took a significant tumble early this week after the National Day-long weekend. Analysts say the biggest drivers of the downturn were the war in Ukraine, global inflation, appreciating US dollar, and trouble in the semiconductor industry. Taiwan is a global powerhouse in chip production, but new US regulation aimed at China is sending ripples through the sector. Taiwan's biggest company and the world's largest chip foundry TSMC saw its stock price plunge by a record 8.3% on Monday and may see its market cap dip below 10 trillion NT dollars if the trend continues. Republic of China, Taiwan government's official name, celebrated its 111th National Day on Monday. Besides speeches by President Tsai and other key figures, the main event in front of the presidential palace in Taipei included military parades with aerial elements, music and dance performances, as well as temple displays. An evening firework and drone show dazzled an audience of 250,000 in Jiayi, while smaller celebrations were held all across the country.
So the Taiwanese identity has grown tremendously in the past 30 years. I want to ask you, Leslie, why do you think that's the case?
I think there is, especially if we're talking about just Taiwanese identity, and I'm going to take a page from my Uncle Dennis's book, you have this generation that feels very closely to China, especially with the nationalists coming over from China back in, I think, 1950-something. But as time moves on, people are now distancing themselves from that, and more people are being born in Taiwan, and Taiwan is the place they know. And they're slowly replacing the generation that still had kind of a connection to China. And maybe that still kind of persists within a family, but as time moves on, I think people will come to recognize and realize Taiwan more and more as its home. And that's why I think Taiwanese identity has really grown.
You know, I also think that the DPP has worked pretty hard for this because they changed the education system. When they study history now, students, they don't study China anymore. People used to have to. Did you have to study China when you're in junior high?
When I was in junior high here, yeah, we had to study China. And in our geography class, we actually had to memorize all of the Chinese provinces.
That's crazy.
And be able to identify them.
I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. And not just that, but we also learned a lot about Chinese history as well. And that was just a remnant of, like I said, the historical factors behind the governance of Taiwan as well.
So they got rid of all of that, and so the young people today have only learned about Taiwanese history. So I think that's one reason. I also think there's a greater sense of Taiwanese pride in our democracy, and even cultural symbols like our national drink, boba, right, or food, or our travel destinations. There's been a growing sense of pride in what's special about Taiwan as well.
And not just that, but we also see that Taiwan is, despite what there might be said out in the news and things like that, Taiwan has been governed independently this entire time, and all the decisions that the country makes and all of the policy changes that makes, the things that we're proud of, are distinctly Taiwanese, and nobody else had made them for us. And that's why I think the Taiwanese identity has also grown very, very strong.
How about you? How do you identify yourself?
Taiwan is such a diverse and complex place, but I'm going to flat out say it, like, my family and I myself identify as solely Taiwanese. That was something that was prevalent in our family growing up. My parents made it a very strong point to make sure that we understood that we are Taiwanese. And because the reason for this is because my family has been in Taiwan for multiple generations.
Oh, really?
I think 7 generations. On my dad's side, our ancestors emigrated from southern China, the Guangzhou, Guangdong area. And I think he told me that it was a widow and her 3 sons that came over to Taiwan, and they've been here for 7 generations.
Wow.
And then on my mom's side, she's Minnan from Zhanghua County, and they are very local down there as well. They were farmers, and my family ran a general store, I think, for a similar amount of time as well. So that's the reason why I myself identify strongly as Taiwanese.
Were you born in Taiwan?
I was born in Taiwan.
Do you speak Taiwanese?
A little bit. I can listen to Taiwan. My listening is better than my speaking, but I have been told on occasion for my upbringing, for who I am, my Taiwanese, for all intents and purposes, is functional and not that bad.
So, you know, I think our families have a lot of influence on us, because when I was growing up, I was born in the United States, and I had a kind of identity crisis, like, what am I? Am I American, but I look Chinese? And my parents are from China, and they came here in 1949. So, and then they spent their, high school and college here, but they still identify as Chinese. So when I asked my dad, what am I? He said, you're Chinese American. So I think I identify, back then as Chinese American, but then since I've been living in Taiwan all these years, and, I love Taiwan's core values. It's democracy, the friendly people, its culture. So I think I identify as both now, partly because I can't get rid of, how I felt growing up. So I think it's kind of both for me.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people who were part of the Chinese national movement came over from Taiwan and they immigrated to the United States. I think that is something that's very, it's almost like something to struggle with. If you guys watch a lot of popular culture, Fresh Off the Boat, one of the TV shows is about a Taiwanese American, Eddie Huang, and his experiences growing up in a Taiwanese American family, but they also make a point to emphasize that they are Chinese American, and that is very much a product of its time, because a lot of the times the culture, Taiwan's culture, everything from the history to what you said, the education, all came from a Chinese government system.
So anyways, I hope that gives you a little insight into why the Taiwanese identity is growing. And unfortunately, today's a sad day because it's Leslie's last day. And Leslie, I want to thank you so much for adding so much to the show. You've been so fun to work with, and you bring so much positive energy and humor to our show. I mean, we're going to miss you a lot.
I have nothing but great things to say about my time on Taiwan Insider. I feel like I've I am what I am today, and what I am today because of this show. Many times, just learning everything about camera work, news, video editing, and just being a presence in front of the camera it's all just so much. And I remember on my first day in, not even my first day, but like my first few months at Radio Taiwan International, they threw me on camera like 6 weeks.
Well, you're a natural. We knew you'd be great.
And yeah, but it was I remember being like, oh my goodness, can I do this? Am I capable of it? And then after a certain point, it just became natural, and this was just part of the entire growth process. And to be part of this project, and to have video evidence every week of your personal growth, it's like home movies.
You also changed physically.
I did.
If you look at how he looked before and now.
Yeah, it's I
lost some weight.
I don't even
really
know how it
shape.
happened, but there's records of that too on YouTube. So if you go back, you can check it out. So I think that really embodies the change that I've experienced as a person on this show, and I think, yeah, that's nothing like a good allegory.
And you know, Hashtag has been a great creation. I bet you're going to miss Hashtag.
Oh, it's fun doing it every week. I mean, it's stressful trying to find the things to do every week to talk about, and sometimes it'll be crunch time and I'll be like, I have absolutely no topic. But somehow you always get, and I always get great feedback on Hashtag. It's a lot of fun to make. It's a lot of fun to produce, write, and edit. And like I said, it's always going to be part of me, and I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, we're going to miss you a lot, Leslie. Thank you for all that you've added to our show.
Thank you, Natalie. And I'd like to thank everybody else who works on this show, from Qinglan Ge on the cameras, Taco, who's in the studio right now, and Yajun, who helps her with that, and Jessica, who edits the show. It's in Chinese. There's a saying that's called 台上10分钟，台下10年功, I think, and that just means for every 10 minutes you see on the stage of someone like performing, well, that takes 10 years of training. I'd like to alter that and say for every 10 minutes of Insider you see, it requires at least like 10 people to do the work, and we wouldn't be able to do it without them, and I wouldn't be able to put out what I have put out without them either. So I'd like to, right here, thank everybody for that as well, and the viewers as well.
Of course.
Some of our viewers are so passionate, and they send us great emails, and I love reading the feedback. Sometimes it's like constructive, but at the same time, constructive feedback is good feedback. So thank you guys. Thank the crew at Taiwan Insider. Thank you to everybody at Radio Taiwan International for making this an unforgettable segment of my life.
All right. Well, thank you for watching Taiwan Insider. I am Natalie Tso.
I'm Leslie Liao. Don't forget, guys, to follow us on social media. I hope you guys continue to support Radio Taiwan International and continue to watch Taiwan Insider.
Yes, and we are available on all the social media channels. YouTube, please do subscribe, and also Twitter and Facebook. We hope to hear from you.
For Leslie Liao, I'm signing off. I'll see you when I see you.
Bye.